Good morning, everyone. As I always say, we are doing something very different today. A little more intimate, quiet. It's not going to be for everyone, but I did get requests for it, so we're going to do it. We're auditing logs this morning. When I was a driver, I always wondered, what does a log auditor do? What does he look for? You know, what kind of a setting is he in? Well, I'm here in my office and I audit about 100 logs every morning. And I pick one day and I go in order and I look at every single log. Now, no one would watch this if I did that with you guys, if I audited logs for 3 hours from 6 to 9. But we'll show some highlights of things that I think you'd like to see of what I look for as a log auditor. And we're auditing a log right here. Let's just get started. When you look up close at this log, the professional drivers will know what's missing, but for those of you who don't drive, you don't know what an auditor is looking for. Notice this log. He started his day, or he was already driving in Gary at midnight, stopped in Pennsylvania. But notice he did not do what? A pre-trip inspection, or in our case, we require a post-trip inspection, even though that's not an FMCSA regulation. A pre-trip, showing a pre-trip in a day of someone's logs is a requirement. We also require that they put some kind of note, and he has no notes here. So an auditor on the side of the road, a DOT officer, he would see this and he would probably get a violation because he did not put a pre-trip on this day of logs. So this is just one. Let's keep going. This is not a big deal, but it is something I look for as a log auditor. Let's keep going. Let's go to the next one. Right away, as I audit this log, I notice a problem. Notice here, he's off duty, driving, off duty, driving, off duty. Now, we weren't saying anything about this before, like in months previous to this, but it's always been a problem. Until we started to get drivers who were getting tickets for what? As an auditor, you look at this, this guy would get a ticket from some officers because he wasn't in his sleeper berth. He showed off duty, driving, off duty, driving, and then off duty. He would get a ticket for being off duty and not in a sleeper berth. Yes, some DOT officers are that particular. Then what I always tell the drivers is, and I will tell this driver, put a note, like if you're in a hotel, say at hotel, so the officer knows you weren't in your truck on that day or that break, or away from truck. But this guy didn't put any notes. He did put a note of off duty, and that's fine. But I think an officer, if he wanted to be a real stickler, he would give this gentleman a ticket because he didn't go in the sleeper berth. When you're in your sleeper berth, in your truck, they want to see that. They don't want to just see off duty. So that's an example of that. And what happens to this guy now? I'll send him a message to say, please fix it, and he'll fix it. We don't give any kind of penalty unless they abuse it, and then we do. Drivers have to take way too many breaks, in my opinion. And you'll notice here, this poor guy, and he's one of our best loggers. He's an older trucker and does it by the book. Didn't want to switch to electronic logs, but he did, and he's our best logger, in my opinion. But all these you see here on the top, he's off duty. All of that, and then he's in the sleeper berth. He only drove 4.5 hours that day. All what you see in green there is what he drove, which you can see. You mean that's all a truck driver gets to drive? Actually, he could have driven more, but for whatever reason, loading and unloading, he didn't get to do very much. So drivers have to take way too many breaks, in my opinion. Here's one that's interesting. Not interesting, but it is a violation, and I'll show it to you as we drink our morning coffee. Thanks for riding along, by the way. I'm Indiana Jack. As always, we appreciate you being here. If you could do me a favor, hit like, share, subscribe, all of those different things here on the channel. It would help me a lot. Most of you have been so faithful over the years, and I really appreciate you, us being able to share something that you don't usually see on YouTube, not on my channel anyway. Okay, this guy, he's in the sleeper berth, he drives, takes his 30-minute break, and in the sleeper berth. That's fine, but I scroll down and I notice what? No shipping documents. We have had drivers recently getting tickets, getting violations because they don't put the shipping documents on their logs. And if you're an officer and because I know policemen watch this channel, do you give a ticket if the driver doesn't have shipping documents? I think some officers do and some don't, but it is an FMCSA requirement that you put shipping documents, and we require this: the name of the shipper, the BOL, or the commodity. The law or the ruling, if you read it, says either one of those things are okay. We do not allow here, we don't allow the company's load number. You can't use that. You have to put the things that I just said. So here's an example of a guy. He's a good logger, but he just made a mistake, didn't put the shipping documents. So we'll have to send out a reminder, and I will send him an email message, but he will get one of our violations for that. So that'll go on his record for not doing that. Not because we hate him and we're mad at him, just because he made a mistake. You and I probably make mistakes all the time, every day. We just don't have an auditor following us around. So let's go on to the next driver here, as we audit logs here at Life After Trucking.
When I'm not washing trucks, I'm watching Adventures in Trucking with Indiana Jack. Stay tuned.
And the next thing is a subject that's right up there with biblical, epic conversation in the trucking community. And what is that? You'd think it would be about tires or accidents or some drama or something, but no. The number one conversation amongst truckers and logs is personal conveyance. It's always a huge issue with every single trucker. You know I'm a big talk radio fan, and it's always talked about all the time, every day. Drivers get tickets for it every day, and we're going to discuss that right now because that's come up. Personal conveyance is a big deal for me too, because our drivers do that, and in cases where they're not supposed to. For instance, this driver, every day or every other day, he goes on personal conveyance and he uses the same comment, ask to leave shipper, and he stages himself for the next delivery. You can't do that. Personal conveyance is for going to a hotel, going to get food at a restaurant. It can be used now to leave a shipper, but this guy does it every day. So it's a routine, it's a part of how he stages himself, and he will get a violation. He can get away with it a little bit, but eventually the DOT will give him a ticket for that, and we will eventually also take that ability away from him to be able to use personal conveyance in that way. So let's move on to the next driver and see if we can find another personal conveyance. And here is a great one. Not so great for this driver, but a great one for you to see. Like I said, personal conveyance is used for just little things, going to a hotel, going to Walmart, shopping. But this guy, he drove He drove 2 hours on personal conveyance. Then he was off duty. Then he drove more on personal conveyance, and then he drove another 2 hours on personal conveyance, and he had a load. If he gets stopped by the DOT, especially he's in Florida, man, they're strict there, he will get a violation. And a lot of you are asking, well, what will happen if he gets a violation? It just goes on your record, and you get points against you. If you accumulate so many points, you won't be able to drive anymore. And so this gentleman has received a letter. This is an older log, but he received a letter from us saying you can't use personal conveyance, and hopefully he won't in the future. But personal conveyance, it's just simple. When I was a driver, I didn't use it that often, but occasionally I did. Try to limit it if you can. Make it something you use like once a week, but don't drive every day 10.5 hours and then drive another 2 hours on personal conveyance. You will get busted. Not by us, but by the DOT. Is run a report so that we can see the shipping documents in a list format, so that we know if they're changing in a 1 week period of time. And this report, see, it says shipping documents, and then over to the left, you can't see it, it's the name of the driver, and we can see a week's worth of his log shipping documents. So if we know that if they're changing or not. So we just, this doesn't take long unless there's a problem with one of them. But we just scroll down and make sure that all these numbers are changing. And as long as they have different numbers or anything, if it changes in the week's worth of time, then we know that they're paying attention to their shipping documents. That's good. That's good. That's good. Let's scroll down and find one where the guy never changes them. And then he gets a notice from us saying you must change your shipping documents every single day. And we'll keep scrolling down. This guy, I would almost give him a letter, but one day he did change them. See here on the bottom. So I won't send him a letter until this is solid, all one. Right here's a perfect example. This guy, he was on, I know he did loads because he did quite a bit of driving. And I know he didn't have one load that whole time, but he kept shipping documents that whole time. So this is a flag for me. So he will get a notice from us to go back and put in the correct shipping documents. And let's just see if we can find one more. And that will conclude our auditing session. And keep scrolling down here. And by the way, I was serious. If you're a fellow log auditor, And just if you ever want to talk about auditing logs or something, give me a call here or send me an email, jack@indianajack.com. I'd love to talk to you about maybe we can form a society of log auditors. Boy, wouldn't that be interesting? It would be to the other people who audit logs. So here's another guy, same shipping documents for the last 7 days. He's going to get a letter from us, a letter from me. Okay, I'm just going to keep going through all these. Thanks for watching this short video about log auditing, but that takes about 3 hours to go through all of our logs in a day. So basically that's how logs are audited here anyway. And consider this, in my case, I consider myself on the side of the driver and trying to help them get violations. And that, I would think that's most safety directors' goal, is to have the driver get as few violations from the DOT as possible. So don't look at your safety director as an adversary. Look at him on your side, that maybe if he asks you to do something to your logs, it will help you not get violations in the future. Thanks for watching. I'm Indiana Jack, and we will see you next time. Thanks for riding along.